Hello, I'm Brian Germain, and this is Casual Chat, a show we interview really amazing people who have really amazing stories, messages, and ideas to spread with the world. And today I have quite an impressive human being with me. Gary Pacelli has quite a story to tell. Gary, welcome. I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's start at the sort of the beginning general intro, right? So you're a skydiver. And before you were a skydiver, you spent quite a while working at the top. So
Uh,
that in itself is like a fascinating tale, isn't it?
yeah, I started I started actually working in the county jail. I was 21 years old. And
Wow.
so I worked there, went to the corrections academy, did really well. They put me on back to the police academy.
Yeah.
And then I was on county patrol, and I just got transferred pretty much in every division of law enforcement you could think of. I was a motorcycle cop for 10 years. I went and worked for a small town as a detective for 3 years, came back to the sheriff's department. They assigned me to the DEA task force. I was our prosecutor's office, narcotics task force, um, up until the point where I had gotten into an on-duty shooting, and I ended up getting injured, and I had to retire.
Yeah.
So I had about 11
Yeah.
surgeries, put on a lot of weight,
Wow.
and my goal was to lose the weight
Yeah.
so I could skydive. I had done a skydive in 1987 out of a Cessna, a static line jump.
Yeah.
So an old sergeant of mine, he was a really big jumper. He jumped up at the ranch a lot. And I remember in the academy, I would watch him pack his chute before the class started, so I was always intrigued by it. And I always said I was going to get my license. And of course, life happened and I didn't. But when I put on all the weight, I needed a goal, and that was my goal, to lose it. So it took me 5 years, and I got down to 175, and I said, "That's it, I'm going for it."
Yeah.
So I did my
Wow.
tandem, and then I got my license in 2019, right at the end of the season, end of October. So 2020, I spent the whole year just going up and down the East Coast, just getting as many jumps in as I could, and I had a ball. Me and two buddies, we just I hit like 12 drop zones, I think, that year.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
it was so much fun, and that was like the whole reason why I really wanted my license, was to travel and see all the different drop zones and everything, and
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. Then 21 hit, and COVID was there, and things got a little strange.
Yeah.
Um,
For everybody.
yeah, and we tried to make believe it wasn't going on. So we still kind of kept our thing going, just, in the winter, go down to Florida and jump. And the year started off strange because we were chasing the weather. We couldn't get good weather no matter where we went. So I remember sitting in my kitchen and I was checking the weather, and I was like, wow, it's going to be like the first nice weekend. It was March, down in Paraclete. I was thinking about going, right, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I talked to my wife, said,
And,
"Hey, I'm going to drive down there and get a
and
couple of jumps in."
and that begins a major story, right, in itself, that resulted in actually really good read that Gary put together based on an experience that started right, I guess, at this moment.
Yeah,
That it's the reason why I asked you on here, because you've been through not only this, the injury associated with your job and having to recover, right, to cultivate resilience, to bring yourself back up. You've had the power of it, but then the universe handed you a situation, and I want to hear the whole story, um, that led you to really be tested in a way that very few human beings are, and it makes your story incredibly inspiring. and it will be millions of people who hear your story and get goosebumps by hearing it. So let's get started. So you let's set the stage. You go down to Paraclete, which is in Rayford, North Carolina, with the pine trees and a lot of wide open spaces, mostly other than the trees. Um, and you're out there wingsuiting, right?
Yeah, so I got there and it was my first time there. So I didn't, I was unfamiliar with everything. So I looked around. I'm the only fun jumper, and so I knew I wasn't going to be jumping, which was no big deal, because it was still fun, right? It's a new place, So I grabbed my gear. I walked into a hangar. I thought it was like a fun jumper hangar, but it was a bunch of army guys that were in there, and
Always.
I didn't even know it at the time, and I started talking to them, and we were going back and forth, and they told me who they were. They didn't tell me what they did, but I kind of got a pretty good idea, and they had contracted a plane and they invited me to jump, with them, not with them, but on the plane, right? So I was like, wow, yeah, that'd be great.
Nice.
So and, I got on the plane. I told them what I was going to be doing. I was going to be tracking, but I was going to be practicing my wingsuit pattern. Because I'm new to wingsuiting at this point, right? So they were fine, just pull high, make it back. Okay, great, So I did 6 jumps with them that day, and it was great. They were great. It was just like the perfect skydive day.
Mm-hmm.
So went back to the hotel, woke up the next day, boom, come back. There's fun jumpers there. It's a normal day. Um, I get on a plane, but I'm suiting up now. So I start to suit up for the because I'm wingsuiting today. And you know, I feel rushed. I'm fidgety, you know. The suit's not fitting right. It's too
Mm-hmm.
tight, it's too short.
Mm-hmm.
Uh
Not a good feeling. Yeah.
no, really not, and I don't want to hold the plane up, so I'm rushing and I just know that something's not right, I can feel it. So I get on a plane anyway, and sitting there taking a ride up to altitude. And I remember looking at the guy across from me on the plane, and he's looking at me because I am fidgety. I'm like, I'm trying to get the suit, it's just, he could tell. He could
Yeah.
tell, I could tell. We just locked eyes, and I knew.
Yeah.
But and I'm thinking about not jumping. I'm thinking about riding a plane down. I get that voice in my head screaming, don't jump, don't jump, And you know the voice, right? Like
I
we
do.
sometimes we ignore it, right? We think maybe it's just, it's fear, right? I'm not
Yeah.
going to listen to it.
Right.
So I didn't listen to it. I'm actually getting nervous even thinking about it again,
Well,
right? It
yeah,
brings
yeah,
back,
we relive it. It's still in us. Yeah.
yeah. So boom, the light turns red, door opens, to drill, right? Spot, boom, jump. Okay, here we go. I get to the door, I spot, step out, pressurize my suit. And the way it happened was when my suit pressurized, I did a very gentle backflip,
Mm-hmm.
and it put me in the perfect wingsuit position from that, rotation.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I was moving, man. It was like, wow, right off the bat, I was like, shoom.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is great. This is really going great, And I'm going super fast though, because like the suit is it's too short for me. So I'm on an exaggerated head down now angle.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really moving, right? But I'm loving it, because it's just like, wow.
Yeah.
I do my my pattern, everything's great. I get to the point where I had decided that I was gonna open, I picked a spot where I would open.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where inexperience kicks in, right? So being that I get to that point, I'm like, oh, there's a spot. I'm thinking in my head, right? So I rush.
Yeah.
So, which had I a little more experience, I would have realized where am I going? So if I take more time, it's not really a big deal.
Right.
I'm really high at this point. I'm probably still at like 6,000 feet,
Yeah.
so I rush because I'm at that point where I want to open, right? So, and I go and I pitch. I didn't slow down enough, right?
Mm.
I slowed down some, but not enough. So soon as I knew it, as soon as I deployed, I just said I didn't slow down enough. And sure enough, boom, my canopy, like you hear it, like it's like a gunshot.
Yeah.
Wow. It just goes fully open, man. Boom.
Not a
And I hear this crunch, just this like sickening sound, this crunch,
crunch. Yeah.
because it really, jacked me,
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like somebody turned the switch off. I felt this electrical switch go from my neck
Mm-hmm.
all down my body. And as it went down, my body went limp. It was just like, shoot. And
Mm.
I couldn't move.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, you know, like, no way. This didn't just happen. So I think, you know what? Give it a minute, give it a couple seconds, it'll come back.
Sweet.
Okay, it doesn't come back, right?
Yeah.
And that was the moment I knew. I'm gonna die. That's
This,
it.
this is
There's
it,
nothing.
right?
That's
Yeah.
it. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
So
Did your life because people always say my life flashed before my eyes. Did you go through memories or anything like that? Or was it just
yeah,
a
well,
moment
I
of
absolutely,
surrender?
absolutely. Because when you get that thought, okay, man, I'm done. I'm gonna die, right? So you like I did anyway. I can speak for myself, I guess. I at that moment I gave up, right?
Yeah.
Because what am I gonna do, right?
Right.
I can't steer, I can't flare.
Yeah. There's trees.
And I'm probably about 5,000 feet at this point. So all I see is like just trees, nothing but trees. And I'm like, oh man. So your life absolutely flashes before your eyes, right?
Mm.
Um, I think about my family, my wife, my kids, my dogs,
Mm-hmm.
because it's,
Yep. Drifting
you have
away,
like,
right? It's drifting out of reach.
yeah. And
Yep.
so you have what, 5 minutes to live. And I'm thinking,
It's actually a long time. To
yeah,
think
it's a
really,
long
I
time.
mean, most people don't get that much time.
Yeah, right. And so I think to myself, okay, I got 5 minutes to live. What am I going to do? Right. So you give up, but then all of a sudden, like there's something inside you that's little flame,
Mm.
just like it starts as a tiny little like candle almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because like you're really sad, right? It's the best way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I felt this like deep sadness, for everything I'm going to miss, right? How
Yeah.
the world is going to just move on without me.
Yeah.
Like I was never here. Like nothing's gonna change in the world except I just won't be here anymore. Right? This is what I thought.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
with that flame though, it sadness turns to anger now. Now like I hit that point where now I'm mad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is after like I don't know, it seemed like forever, but I must have imagined every single possible way I was gonna die, right?
Yeah.
I was going to get impaled in a tree. I was going to drown in a lake. Like
Mm-hmm.
your mind just goes everywhere, right?
Yep.
And so you get angry, then you get like furious. I was really mad at this point. Like I'm like, no way, I am not going to just float off into
Yeah.
and just okay,
Yep.
I'm done. No way. And plus, to be honest with you, I had this. The thought was terrifying of getting hung up in a tree in the middle of this vast forest out there, alive, paralyzed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just no one could find me.
Right.
and the squirrels and the birds are pecking at me, right? This is what I'm thinking, right? It's my suit, and there's nothing I can do about it, you know.
Yeah.
And I think, well, at least I won't feel it, right? And that's really no comfort, you know. I
No.
mean, it is a little bit, right? But I said, you know what? Absolutely not. I got to get close to the drop zone, so at least they'll find me, right?
Hmm.
So I think to myself, all right, what am I going to do? Now, I had just taken a canopy course, and you know, because again, I'm a pretty new jumper here. I have 338 jumps, right? So, and I realized, you know what? Harness inputs. I could probably steer the canopy, you know, harness inputs, right? So when I, like, all right, I can move my head. I know, you know, I can do this, right? I could try to shift my weight, and I have a little bit of movement in my left hand, a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, but what I also had going for me was the fact that I was in a wingsuit, right?
Hmm.
So from moving my head, I was able to get my arm to like flail out to the side a little bit, right?
Little
And since I
drag
was
on. Yeah.
yeah, so the wingsuit, you know, it was those movements were amplified, you know.
Hmm. Sure.
So I was able to make these really wide 360-degree turns. So I'm like, oh, perfect.
Whew.
Uh, because
Oh.
I planned my opening where, you know, if I had a bad main and I cut away, at least I knew the winds would carry it back to the drop zone. So I knew
Hmm.
they were going to take me towards the drop zone, but I had to burn off the altitude, right? So
Right.
I didn't overshoot it, right?
Right.
So I figured I'll just keep making these turns, and you know, at least I'll land close to the drop zone. They'll find me at least. You know, that was my. There's in my mind there was no way I was going to live, so I'm just planning on where, you know, they're going to find my body.
Wow.
So I'm
Whew.
doing this, and all of a sudden, you know, my altimeter in my helmet,
Yeah. You're
what
audible.
yeah, my audible, it's set for 1200, 600, and 300. So 1,200 feet, boom. I'm crossing the runway. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna overshoot the landing zone.
Yeah.
And I'm heading right for the trees, right? Oh man. Okay. So I'm trying whatever, doing my best. And 600 feet, everything's getting bigger now. Like, you know,
Yeah.
you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
Um, I catch this breeze and it turns me around, and it puts me like almost like a landing pattern, right? And I turn into the wind, and
Hmm.
300 feet, boom, here it is. You know, now I know I'm dead in 25 seconds, boom, done deal. So, um, but the wind put me into the wind, which is very bizarre. You know, that whole thing still to this day is like a very strange thing, you know.
Yes,
Uh,
it most certainly is
you
because
know,
in
and
most cases, the opposite tends to happen. It,
yeah,
it
right.
tends
You
to
know,
turn you
so
to a run.
yeah, and you know, so I'm not a religious person, right? Um, I'm spiritual. Okay. I do believe in God. Okay. Um, I don't go to church. You know, I read the Bible. I don't understand it, whatever, you know.
I
I
get it.
just always tried to be a pretty decent guy, you know. So, you know, of course, you know, there's no atheists in foxholes. I always heard that saying, and now I really understand it, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, whatever reason, you know, I come in 25 seconds, here I go, and I know that I'm still in bad shape here because I can't flare, you know.
Yeah.
So as I'm coming, I see a chain link fence, and I can't lift my legs up. I can't do anything, right? So I'm like, oh, here we go, right? But I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm not gonna feel it anyway. So I hit right above my knees, and it flips me over. And it absorbed the impact is what it did, you know, and it actually saved my life because
Slowed you
it flipped
down.
me over and I landed. And
What are the odds of that? You know?
yeah, right. And like 30 feet to my left is an above ground pool, you know.
That'd hurt.
Oh, if I would have hit that, forget it, you know, I would have drowned, you know. And
Yeah. Good point. You can't get,
right.
it's not like you can swim.
Yeah, I can't do anything. I just would have sat there and drowned, right? So I hit the ground, and again, my visor was really dark. So I'm half like faced into the ground, right? And I just see darkness at this point, and I don't know if I'm dead or alive, right? I actually think to myself, am I dead? And I try to move, I can't move, so I'm like, ah, man, I'm alive, and I'm really kind of screwed, man, because I'm paralyzed. And that was the thing too, like, as I was coming in, the voice that we, sometimes ignore, right? Sometimes good, bad. I'm hearing, it's telling me,
Yeah.
Just ditch it into the trees.
Mhm.
Because even if you live, you're paralyzed.
Right.
I don't want to live. I don't, I'm thinking like, I don't want to put my family through that. So I
Yeah.
didn't want to live actually, because I couldn't see a positive end.
Sure.
It's kind of
Sure.
hard to see positive in that, like,
Yeah.
um, but a major point though to this whole story though is we don't know the end, right? We
Yes.
don't, we don't we don't get to know how it ends. So we have to fight. You just can't give up because you
Yes.
don't know the end, right?
Yeah. That
I can't
flame.
stress.
Yeah. The
I
flame,
was,
the flame that we were talking about that, like, no, no, I'm going
yeah,
to fight back.
and I can't stress that enough though. Like, because I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. There's so many things, right? Great. Now, when I hit the ground, I'm laying there. I'm like, oh, all right. Now what? Well, this is not good.
Yeah.
So the guys I had jumped in the day before, they were there in like 30 seconds. Like they were there so fast, right? And they stabilized me like so quick, and like it was amazing the job they did. Next thing I know, boom, I'm up in the air. Um, I asked the flight medic to just throw me out when we got to altitude. He didn't
Of
he
course you
didn't
did.
find any humor in that whatsoever. Yeah. So but you're in that. I mean, I had like 6 inches, probably 6 to 8 inches from my nose to the roof, right?
Yeah.
And normally that would have freaked me out. But I just gave up. I was like, who cares, man? I'm just like a sack of meat right now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so kind of whatever happens is it's a bad attitude. It's a wrong way to do it, but it's kind of hard when you're sitting there, like
Yeah.
like I was really calm about the whole thing. Even when they were stabilizing me and everything, because yeah, I kind of realized, look, there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I can do that's going to change my situation, right? So, you know,
Accept it, right?
I just accept it. Really, like I'm not gonna whine about it, or it's not gonna change anything.
Mhm.
So, and I think also like I owed a case of beer because I happened to tell the drop zone manager it was my first time jumping there the day before. He's like, "Oh man, you want a case of beer?" I'm like, "All right." So I had it in my truck, and they were going to get my wallet and stuff, and I'm like, "Hey, you got to take that case of beer out of the truck." I,
That was very
I,
thoughtful. That was very
you know,
thoughtful of you laying in a
I,
gurney.
I don't want it to go to waste, and I owe it, right? But I think that's what your brain does to
Mhm.
take you away from the situation, right? I,
Yeah.
I think I think your brain
Yep.
like knows what it's doing, right? It wants to focus on something else, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah. And humor. I notice that comes up for me always. If I'm hurt and just or screwed,
right, yeah,
I
screwed,
I'm
right?
I'm hilarious.
Right.
And it gets, nurses and doctors or whatever to have a bit of a levity in their job too, because they need that.
Yeah.
They need that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And so I landed in the hospital. They decided to take me to instead of the closest hospital, they decided to go to the further one. And so it was a 23-minute ride. Uh, I only know that because they told me, and they and at this point I didn't really care really, you know what I mean? Like to me, and I was in and out of consciousness anyway at this point, I was nodding in and out, and but the one thing I have to say though is if you ever get medevaced out, you gotta close your eyes, man, because like I got so much dirt in my eyes
I'll
for
take
I
off.
mean like a year I was pulling dirt out, right?
Yeah.
So I land at the hospital and I don't understand what's going on because there's so many doctors and nurses. So I'm thinking to myself, man, something really bad must have happened. Like, what are they waiting to come in? Like, why are they all lined up here, you know? And so I asked the nurse who was like doing my intake, you know, like 'cause there's a lot going on. Like they're sticking IVs in me, you know, they're you know, everything's shredded off me, you know, like, you know, they have the portable x-ray machine, like we run down a hallway or like there's just so much, you know. And I said to the nurse, I said, you know, hey, what's going on? Did something bad happen? You know, and she looks at me and she says, you know, she goes,
You,
you happened, you know, and you know,
you're the
and
shit.
then I realized though, like it kind of struck me like really hard though, like that,
Right.
wow, these people care, man. Like they really
Yeah.
care, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, that was a big deal, you know, because I couldn't understand why, you know, like
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, man, just throw me in the corner, you know, like I'm
Hmm.
really like I'm like a monster at this point. I consider myself, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I'm useless. I'm like, you know, so
Grotesque. Yeah.
but they weren't having it, you know.
Mhm.
So I just remember they kept x-raying me. They must have done it like 4 or 5 times, you know, and they couldn't understand. Like I didn't have a scratch on me, you know, not a scratch, and they just couldn't believe it, you know. No broken bones, nothing, you know, except my neck. I broke my neck. Um, you know, I found out later that you know, uh, C5 and 6 that just blew out. You know, it was just like, which again, I come to find out that I was so lucky that that happened
Hmm.
because like the doctor had said if they stayed intact,
Yeah.
they would have severed my cord, you know?
Sure. That makes sense.
So, and again, I didn't know any of this, you know, as far as I was concerned, I'm done, you know, I'm just done. I'm paralyzed. This is it. Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, they get me all, they put me in the ICU to get me there. And, you know, I'm probably about 10 feet from the nurses station, you know, and it's really busy and they get me in there and I don't know what they gave me, man, but boom, like it
Yeah.
was like,
I'm good.
yes, yeah, man. It was like, you know, I was in and out. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was hallucinating, you know, like at one point I remember looking to my left and I remember seeing my old partner when I was on narcotics and I laughed, you know, I say to myself, wow, I just saw Big Lenny, you know,
Hmm.
and I, right. And I look again and I laugh because Emily's still there. Right. And I look, I'm like, Lenny, you know, he's like, yeah, man, I've been looking for you all, you know, I was like, he was actually there, you know,
Oh,
so
it wasn't a hallucination at
it
all.
wasn't an hallucination. He had retired and moved to North Carolina, South Carolina, Myrtle
Yeah.
Beach. And you know, my wife, Kristen, um, they didn't know that the helicopter diverted from the closer hospital.
Right.
So nobody knew where I was, right? So, you know, she called him and you know, he set out to find me, you know. So he finally found me at the hospital I was in. And man, it was great to, you know, great to see him, though, I gotta tell you, you know.
Yeah.
I got to talk to my wife and you know, I lied, of course. I told her I was fine, you know. I said, no, it's all good. I'm fine. A couple days, I'll be good, you know.
Understandable.
Uh, yeah, you know, at that moment, you know, well, you know, what was I going to tell her? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you know, I'm screwed, right? You know,
And
and
for your from
so
your perspective, you were, right? Because
yeah, I mean, I didn't know anything else, you know, like so, you know, with this, I'm there and it's pretty like it's scary, man. You know, I gotta tell you, you
yeah.
know, I know I'm supposed to act like some tough guy and everything and say, you know, like no, I wasn't scared. No, man, I was
Yeah.
scared. You know, there's no doubt. You know, you know, here I am. I'm sitting there like I'm paralyzed, man. You know, like think about that. Like, you
Yeah.
know, I'm
Yeah.
used to running around. You know, like being in control, right? You know, you have that control. You know,
Yeah.
I always exercised, like was strong, and now I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I can't do anything, and
Attack and retreat are not an option, right?
nah,
When fear comes up, we were like, I want to be able to escape or I want to be able to aggress directly and solve my problem. And that's not
yeah,
an option. Now you're left with
yeah,
freeze and accept and
yeah. It was pretty, it was rough, and I remember thinking like, man, I can't do it, I can't do it.
yeah.
So your brain though, like your brain, it can really, looking back now, right? Your brain can like launch you into greatness, man. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
it can, or it can drag you down to the lowest pit, and I learned that you get to control your brain. That's what I learned.
Nice.
I learned the hard way, you know,
Hmm.
but I learned to take control of it. And which is tremendous now, you know what I mean? Because now, like, I can decide when every morning when I get to put my feet on the ground, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and get up and oh man, right? It's a new day, man. I'm standing up. Like that's amazing, right? And but I at that moment every day, I can decide, you know what? I'm gonna have a great day. I'm gonna be good to everybody I see. Um, I you know, because I can also choose, you know what? I'm going to be a jerk. I'm going to
Yeah.
be mean. I'm going to,
Yeah.
it's just one decision or another. It's a flip of a coin, really, right?
Mhm.
But you're in control of it. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
When you realize that, it makes things a lot easier.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm human and I do slip, but
It,
then I can always catch myself and bring myself right back.
yeah.
But it was hard. And in the hospital there, I didn't see a way out, right? I didn't see, I just saw the negative, right?
Hmm.
Um, so your brain goes to places where, um, I don't, it's not that I'm embarrassed to tell the story.
Hmm.
Um, people are going to say what they're going to say and whatever,
Yeah.
walk a mile in my shoes, right? So
Yeah.
here I am sitting there, and I'm thinking, man, I can't do this. I got to kill myself. I have to,
Sure.
right?
That
I
is a
can't.
totally natural set of thoughts, where
Yeah, right. I
you
mean,
can't envision a future based on your conception of what life is and what
right,
brings joy is not accessible from that perspective.
right. And again, it goes back to not knowing the end, right? You don't know how it ends. So,
Yeah.
um, but here I am like, well, what am I going to do? Right. How am I going to do it? I can't move. Um, the nurse certainly isn't going to come in and give me a hot shot and OD me, right? It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I just, I remember the movie Silence of the Lambs, right? With Hannibal Lecter, right? And
Right.
I remember part of the movie where he convinced the lunatic in the cell right next to him to swallow his tongue, right?
Right. Right.
And I'm thinking, okay, I'll do that, right?
So
Well,
you're actively visualizing a way out, right?
yeah, and I try it, right? And guess what? It's got to be an impossible thing to do because the only thing that I managed to do is get my tongue to hurt, right? Like, great, there's one thing on my body I can feel. It's my tongue, and now it hurts, right? So I said, this isn't going to work, right? But then I formulated a plan that, all right, well, when I get out of here, I'm going to get a motorized wheelchair, and I'm going to drive it in front of a bus, right?
Yeah.
Again, that's your brain, right? It's like it just, man,
It's
it
the
can
logic.
really,
It's the logic to me of where the mind goes is this, series of thoughts that make sense to us in
right.
that perspective.
Yeah, because it made total sense to me then, at that moment, that made sense to me.
Yep. That's
So,
the mindset.
the doctor comes in and he says, all right, well, look, from the x-rays, it looks like, your discs, just blew out, like kind of like just crumbled almost, and he says, that's a good thing. He said, I don't think your spinal cord is severed, but I'm not going to know until I get in there.
Mhm.
Um, so he says, I'm going to send you for an MRI and then right into surgery.
Yeah.
So, and I'm thinking, okay, um, but you're not going to stick me in that MRI tube, you know? And not from what I just went through. There's no way you're going to stick me in. I already feel like I'm in a coffin inside my own body. You know
Sure.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm really tiny inside my own body, you know, and I'm a prisoner, right?
Yeah.
And so I tell him, like, look, I can't, you can't do it. I will flip out. There's no way, uh, because he also told me that they got to stick my head in some wooden box contraption and
Right.
stop it from moving. I'm like, oh, great. Like the one thing I can move now, I can't,
Right.
So, he's like, all right, well, I'll give you, I think it was Valium, whatever, who knows, but whatever it was, he gave me a lot of it. And, everything from that point on was just like flashes of, like almost like watching like an old movie, right? And you just get these little flickers, and so I didn't realize though that it was a really time was really important. I had to get into surgery extremely fast,
Yeah.
because my spinal cord kept swelling.
Yeah.
Right, it was really swollen and bruised. Right,
Sure.
and they needed to stop the swelling and do whatever they had to do. Right, so needless to say, they get me to surgery. I come out. I don't remember talking to the doctor after that because I was so drugged up,
Yeah.
And I'm sure he came in and told me something, but I don't, I don't remember any of it.
Yeah.
He did call my wife, but I had no way of speaking to her because I didn't even have a phone at this point, I didn't even know where my stuff was. So I wake up back in the ICU and I have no idea what's going on, really, because the nurse, they're not going to tell me anything. They want the doctor to tell me, so you go back to that place, right? That pit, man, like just that
Hmm.
heavy dread, that doom,
Yeah.
and it is the worst feeling in the world, man. There's nothing like it,
It's hell. That's
so
the human experience of hell, right?
yeah, right. I mean, it really is like that whew, that's, there's things worse than death,
Yes.
and that I would consider that probably like that's definitely got to be on the list,
Yeah.
So the next time I see the doctor was could have been the next day, it could have been an hour. Time is all compressed, expanded. Like I was on some serious drugs, man.
Sure. Yeah.
So he tells me though that it was very successful. I didn't sever my spinal cord. Um, but he has no idea what's going to happen. They just, he was honest, and
Hmm.
he said, we just don't know, like that's, we're going to keep you in the ICU. We're going to watch. We're going to see what happens. We're going to take it day by day. I said, okay, great.
Yeah.
But he did say everything he did was successful and,
Yeah.
okay.
And
So
he didn't say you're definitely paralyzed. There's no,
no,
right?
right.
And that's, a little
That
bit of
the
crack light coming through there.
Yeah, and that was great. Like he was very happy.
Yeah.
But he couldn't wasn't going to commit at that point to anything. And I
Totally.
totally understand. So again, where you go? You go right back in your head.
Mhm.
And the what ifs. And you try to envision like what is life going to be like.
Right.
And it's just it plays on and on and on. Um, Probably a
Yeah.
couple days go by like this. And I would probably say, 4 or 5 days of just living like that, right? I still haven't talked to my wife really because I don't have a phone, and I'm in the ICU. It's not like the nurses aren't busy,
Mhm.
So they're talking to her, so it's not like she's in the loop, Um, so I just remember sitting there and I'm trying so hard, just to move something, right? I'm trying to go through my brain, just trying to figure out which,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I'm moving my big toe, right? And I'm thinking, well, yeah, wait a second. So I yell for the nurse. She comes over. I'm like, I'm moving my big toe, and she doesn't see it. So she rips my sock off, and she grabs it, and she feels it. So she's like, I feel it. And she runs off, gets the doctor. He comes
Right.
down, and he grabs it and he feels it. And I see this smile on his face,
Yeah.
and he didn't have to say a word
Yeah.
at that point. The smile alone, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, and he's like, all right, this is great. And then the next, 2 days, it's like, I get the other toe, I get my finger, and I get another finger, right? And like
Nice.
that, then he comes in and he commits now. He's like, look, okay, hey, I did everything I could do. Everything's working. Uh, I can't guarantee that you're gonna walk. I don't, these are things that we just don't know, and I he says, when people are at this point, I say, look, it's luck. It's just luck, because some people don't walk, some people do,
Is it luck?
and I don't
I mean,
know.
really, that's what he said. But do you feel like,
Um,
'cause, right? Some people went
no,
this
I
way.
don't. I don't. I think it was, from that moment on, I was like, I was positive from that moment on, because I started to think about everything that went, wrong was countered by something that went right. And if that one thing didn't go right, like it was a puzzle, and if every little piece, it was a piece to that puzzle,
Mhm.
everything, making it back to the drop zone, saving all that time, right? Instead of having to find me and then, get me to the hospital.
Yeah.
The fact that I jumped with the guys out of Fort Bragg, right?
Mm-hmm.
The training they had to get me stabilized that quick and perfect.
Pivotal.
Um, the medevac crew, deciding to take me to the better hospital, right?
Better trauma center. Yeah.
Um, you, you know, um,
All of it.
everything, the
Yeah.
fence, hitting the fence, right?
Yeah.
Absorbing the impact,
Yeah.
not drowning in the pool, the wind putting me into the wind, like just
Yep.
these little things,
Right.
even like the doctor, he wasn't even on duty that day. He just came in to check on a patient, you know, and he's one of like the best neurosurgeons on the East Coast, right? He just happened to be coming in to check on a patient as I'm getting rolled in, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like it's just amazing, right? So I just thought of all these things, and I'm like, yeah, no way, all these things didn't happen
Mm-hmm.
for me to lay in bed the rest of my life and have to be fed. There's no way,
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, I'm going to take this ride all the way out,
Yeah.
So man, that was it. Like I was just positive from that moment on. And when I got to therapy, eventually, um, I went upstairs to a room, and I couldn't go to therapy until I got weaned off the narcotics, the IV narcotics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and once they weaned me off of that, I could go to
Go
therapy.
to PT. Yeah.
Yeah, and another piece. This hospital has one of the best, you know, therapy programs in the country. Right? There's a waiting list. You have to get
Wow.
approved. And I was like, again, how lucky am I? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember getting transferred to the therapy wing, and it was late on a weekend, and they wanted me to sign the forms, but I couldn't. I can't move. I
Mm-hmm.
still can't move.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they don't speak English. And we're going back and forth, and finally, I got them to understand what I was trying to say was to stick the pen in my mouth. So I stuck the pen in my mouth and I signed the intake form, and
Wow.
I started therapy the next day.
Wow.
And I just had amazing, amazing therapists, man. Like they were just incredible. I had this whole team, and it wasn't because I'm not special. Everybody who goes to therapy there has the same team.
Yeah.
Everybody's you have a doctor assigned to you, physical therapist, occupational therapist, recreational therapist, speech therapist, dietitian. It's like all, and they formulate a plan every week, and it was amazing, right?
Yeah.
But I just hit it so hard though, and because I had to relearn everything, and it didn't come easy, like,
Yeah.
and it took time, like, so when I got there, I still couldn't move, but they still had me on the mat trying, move my leg, like I had to give it everything I had just to get my foot like an inch off the mat, like,
Hmm.
and to them that was success, right? Wow, what a great day, and I'm thinking, oh man,
Yeah.
that's success, I got a long way to go, right? But I just I just gave it everything, man. I knew because this you only get one shot. I had one shot to walk out of that hospital.
Hmm.
Um, I wasn't gonna blow it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so when patients would cancel their appointments, they would come and ask me, but yes, and never turn them down.
Yeah.
By the time I left, I was doing like 5 hours of therapy a day. I would take everything they had. I didn't care. They would come and experiment on me, right? Because they have like this exoskeleton that they
Hmm.
put you in. Thing's
Yeah.
amazing, right? So you're in your chair and they strap you into this thing, right? And they control it, and it actually it stands you up out of your wheelchair, like boom,
Wow.
and it
Bionic
could walk.
man.
Yeah, right. And they could set it where it does all the walking for you, you know. And then obviously they could set it in any position, in between that,
Hmm.
and it retrains your muscles to
Hmm.
line up with your brain, right? Because I
Yeah.
lost the connection to my
Sure.
muscles. So I had to retrain like so the message, I guess, had to go around the injured part
It-
or whatever. I don't really
Yep.
understand it,
It
but
does reroute. Yeah.
yeah. And so by doing it with the suit, it again, it's retraining your brain and your muscles to try to work together. It's an
Wow.
amazing thing though, like,
Wow.
so I would hit that like, 3 times a week, or they would put the electrical stims on me like all over my body.
Yep.
And they
Keep the
wanted to
muscle
see if they
mass.
could, I don't know what it's called, but it's like the bike you do with your arms,
Yeah, sure.
right?
Arm bike, yeah.
So they hooked me all up. They wanted to see if I could do it with them controlling me.
Oh,
Um, and it actually worked, the guy was so happy, because he wrote the program for it. And I was like, hey, this is great, and it was really cool. But
wow.
I was there for almost 2 months. And
Wow.
but
Wow.
my thing was like, I don't want to get gross, but I had to be catheterized every 6 hours, right?
Yeah,
Because they
that's
couldn't, they wouldn't leave it in because of an infection, right? So,
yeah, it's risky. Yeah.
and that was the worst thing in the world.
Oh, it's
That's like that.
humiliating.
Oh, so
Totally
humiliating.
humiliating.
Yeah, I mean,
Humbling, right?
yeah.
And we surrender to assistance, right?
Right,
That's a challenge for, an adult that's used to kind of taking care of their own business to actually, allow help and accept help and be thankful
yeah,
for the help, right? That trip for me in recovery is always what gets the momentum going is I'm just so glad that everybody's
right.
helping. They all really give a shit about my well-being. And then I
Yeah, which
start
is
to do it myself.
it's kind of crazy, like I mean, I couldn't thank these people enough, really, if you think about it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
so I had a case manager, there's a big whiteboard in my room, and she came in, and when she introduced herself, and she wrote on the whiteboard, she wrote, I fell out of an airplane, right? And she said, "Look, whenever you have a bad day or you're just frustrated and you want to quit or whatever, you just got to read that." And she said, because you're not supposed to be alive, so whatever happens this moment on is not a big deal. She said, and she's right. It helped me tremendously.
Yeah.
And then my other goal was, I will pee on my own and I will walk out of this hospital. Very simple. And right. I think it was like 3 days before I got discharged. I ended up being able to go on my own, which was a huge deal. And I'm so happy, right? Like the nurse was so happy. Everybody was like having a big party, because because that's terrifying too, thinking about that, like,
Mhm.
you know, and I just remember walking out of that hospital, though, there was no feeling like that, you know. Of course, I wasn't allowed to walk out, you know, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, because it's our policy,
They don't
right?
let anybody walk out.
I just looked at the nurse and I laughed and I just walked out of that hospital.
Oh,
You
you
know, I
did
mean,
on
this
your
is,
yeah,
oh,
taking her.
there's no way I was not walking out of that hospital, you know? So,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was, you know, and you know what? The thing was though, like I mastered my hotel room, my hospital room, right? And you know, I thought I was in pretty good shape, right? You know, um, but I realized the drive home that, you know, we stopped at a gas station and I walked in and I wanted to grab a soda. And man, you know, like I'm limping around and I just feel everybody's looking at me, right? You know, and I grab a soda, I can barely carry it, right?
Yeah.
Um, and at this point, too, um, if I'm not looking at what's in my hand, I drop it,
Mm-hmm.
just gone. I don't have any feeling in my hands yet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to really make sure I look at this thing as I'm trying to pay for it, you know? And I get back in the truck and I can't close the door. I can't put my seatbelt on. And I just realized at that point, like, whoa, I got a lot of work to do, man. You know,
Yeah.
like this is just the beginning. And because the world is a lot faster and you know,
Mm-hmm.
they're not as they don't care, you know. People just don't care. They're in a hurry. They got places to go. Get out of their way. You know what I mean? Like, so I realized that. And, you know, I went home and I was on a mission from that point, you know, like I had to, you know, you know, I found a great place for therapy and they hit it just as hard as, you know, the hospital, you know,
Nice.
and that's what I needed, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, you gotta understand this whole time too, though, like in the back of my mind, I'm running out of time because I'm gonna lose currency skydiving, right? Now,
That's what's occurring to you.
yeah, it really is, you know, and it's bugging me, man,
It's a
because I'm
goal
like,
though. It's a goal,
yeah,
right?
it is a goal. And I was like, man, like I'm just doing everything I got to do just to try to recover, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I think it must be April, I guess, well, more May. I think it was probably May at this point, middle May, you know, and I'm going to therapy. I'm doing everything I can. You know, I visited the drop zone a couple times, and you know, it's just I don't have my gear. I haven't seen my gear, you know, and I'm starting to feel like a high school kid that stayed out too late, you know, and they took my car keys away, you know. You know what I mean? That's what I feel like at this point, you know. And it's I'm starting to feel like I did something wrong. You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm being punished now, you know, like and it's not done, it wasn't done on purpose, you know, but I'm like, you know, all right, I get it, I'm injured, you know, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna get better, right? You know, I didn't understand like so I watched veterans jump, right? Some guys missing arms, you know, legs, whatever, you know, they modify their gear, right?
Amazing,
And they
right?
train, right? It's unbelievable, right?
Yeah. Talk about
So
resilience and courage. It's freaking awesome.
yeah,
I'm like,
definitely motivating,
I'm
inspiring, right?
amazed.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, you know what, regardless of what shape I end up in, because I don't know what shape I'm going to end up in.
Yeah.
Because they say you have a certain amount of time, right? They told me 6 months, you get all your major improvements, you know, then a year and a half, after a
And
year
then
and a half, you don't, yeah,
yeah.
you don't improve anymore, right? I never really believed that, you know, because I just think your body's always going to improve, you know, um, slightly, but over time it adds up, you know, like,
Mhm.
um, I mean, even like, for example, the end of last season, I could not pack my rig. I could not pack. My fingers weren't strong enough. I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't even install my brakes. Right.
Mhm.
You know, then uh, a winter goes by, and now this last season, I'm able to pack. Right. So
Nice.
it's beyond that year and a half, 2 years. You know, so I'm
Yeah.
still still getting feeling back,
Yeah.
So again, I believe it's your mindset, staying positive and just working towards that goal,
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I did notice, a couple things, and I noticed things that I'm sure that I'm guilty of myself, right?
Mhm.
Um, Even in like, the hospital, or like when you're paralyzed like that,
Mm.
your helplessness really, it kind of repulses people,
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
there's something about it, it's whether it's a fear, they look at you like they don't want to, like they just don't want to look at you because they don't want to see
Yeah.
themselves in that position or envision themselves.
Yeah.
Um, and it's pretty crappy, it's a crappy thing,
Hmm.
And even like when I got out limping around, and I still have a limp, it depends on the day, really,
Yeah.
Some days I don't have one. Other days I dragging my leg around. There's nothing I can do about it,
Yeah.
And I noticed, people look at you differently, right?
Yeah.
People that don't know you, obviously, people that know me, they just like, they treat me like they always would, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I guarantee that I was the same way, before I got hurt, So
Hmm.
I remember like going to the drop zone, and I felt out of place, right? I
Yeah.
felt I couldn't figure out why, right? Um, you know, the one thing I did figure out though was I was a spectator,
Yeah.
right? I wasn't a participant, right? So I didn't really fit in,
Totally.
And so, again, that's another thing that motivates me. Like I really want to get in the air. I don't want to lose currency because I don't think I'll get it back, right?
Hmm.
You're talking like a broken neck. People are scared, man. They're like, there's no way you're jumping again. People decided that I wasn't going to jump again,
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I kind of understand it, but I didn't decide that. To me, he's like, No, not really. I mean, the doctor says I'm good to go. I'm going to jump, as soon as he says it, I'm going to, when I can, right?
Yeah.
So I went through that battle too, like the recovery, trying to get people to help me. It was very hard.
Yeah.
And it's there's reasons too, like again, um,
Yeah. Oh,
this is like
sorry. We'll edit that.
okay.
My phone is making noise. Good time for take a little water break. We'll figure out how to do that.
Yeah, right.
How to edit it. Take a sec. Yeah, it's good stuff. This is really, really helping.
Yeah, you think? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
All
So,
right.
so you're getting back on the drop zone now, trying to figure out your place. You're
Right.
trying to figure out, if their perspective of you is, valid, that, maybe you shouldn't jump, maybe you don't belong here. Where are you going to build yourself back up, where you stop believing doctors that say you can't, other jumpers that don't even want to look at you because you remind them of their mortality,
Right.
you know?
Right. I realized that later on, I definitely, and what hit me was I remember watching the Olympics, the Winter Olympics. I must have been 80, around there. It was up in Lake Placid, and the ski jump,
Mm-hmm.
the famous ski jump, man. It was just incredible. One of my favorite things to watch these guys.
Oh yeah.
As they would come down, they would see a cemetery,
Yeah.
right? Like that's probably the last thing you want to see coming down a ski jump like that, right? So, but it struck me though that that's probably how people looked at me, right?
Yeah.
They're getting ready to jump, they're getting on a plane, they're going up 2 miles, 2.5 miles, they're going to jump out of it. The last thing they really want to see is me hunched over, limping around. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
I,
Sure.
I, I I didn't realize it then, but looking back, I realize it, and I kind of understand it, you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
but
and
it's
maybe,
also hard.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
It's hard to like coming back from an injury like that because again, there's this stigma of an injury like that, broken neck, right? People don't want to go near you. They don't want to, like they just think you're just gonna like crumble up and fall on the ground and be paralyzed. And I understand that, but it's not reality, it's like any other injury, really, in order for, I'd have to re-break my neck to have,
Yeah.
be paralyzed again. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so whatever limitations I have, I understand I have them, right? Like, whatever, my limp or whatever, there's ways around that, like the veterans, right? Like some of them, they have to modify their gear, they train for that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I couldn't even get anyone to really talk to me about anything of, there's no way, like people laugh at me, like you ain't jumping, I tried to get somebody to take me on a tandem. They're like, absolutely not. No, no way in hell, like I was like, real man, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm about to lose currency. And I knew that if I lost currency, I'm screwed. I'm not getting it back, you know. So needless to say, I ended up doing a recurrency jump. I didn't lose currency, but I went for the recurrency jump. And it worked out, well, did everything good, landed, everything was cool,
Wow.
But
How did that feel? I mean,
oh man, let me
to
tell you,
like the first jump back, that must have been
it,
unbelievable.
it was unbelievable, right? Because I didn't think it was actually going to happen, right? I thought someone was going to step in and intervene, and so I was waiting all the way until the time I got on the plane. Like I was waiting for someone to pull the plug, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I'm getting on the plane and I'm thinking to myself, you know, I I can't even tie my shoes, I'm using elastic shoelaces, because I can't tie my shoes, I can't button shirts or my pants, like,
Yeah.
but I'm jumping, I can jump, that's the one thing I knew, I've gone over it so many times and I wasn't scared, right? It wasn't anything like that. It was, I didn't know what to expect, right?
Yeah.
With my new body, right? Because things are different now. I lost, I don't know, 30 something pounds in the hospital, I was stiff at the time still,
Yeah.
so it wasn't really a fear. It was just an anticipation of, all right, well, what when I hit the wind, how, I have to find my spot again. It's going to be all different,
Mhm.
um, and it wasn't really bad, honestly, like, um, I just kind of like leaned out to get out of the plane and it put me into a flip and I
Mhm.
recovered and I was stable, I was looking around, and we linked up. Everything went well, like so I was very fortunate though. I'm gonna say her name and I hope she doesn't get mad, but so Shauna Finley took me on my jump, right?
She
And
she she deserves a pat on the back.
a
For
hundred
real.
percent.
You know what I
She stuck,
mean?
yeah,
That's
she
courageous. That was courageous.
totally stuck her neck out. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
really did,
Yeah.
and nobody else was gonna do it at that time. There was no way, and but she made it clear that hey, if I was unsafe, if she didn't think I was ready, she's grounding me for 6 months. No
Mhm.
questions. Like, I had to agree to that. And I was fine with that
Mhm.
because I knew she'd be fair. There was no agenda there, right? And
Yeah.
I don't want to jump if I'm not safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I didn't have a problem with it. So it was just I never jumped down in Virginia, so I didn't know, it's beautiful though, I gotta tell you,
Yeah.
And I just remember when we linked up and the plan was, I was gonna get stable, whatever, do a couple turns. Um, like give her the thumbs up when I was about to get ready to deploy. She was gonna come around to the side in case I couldn't deploy. She was, there. It's okay. So everything worked out fine. I deployed great, and boom, I got line twists, right? And I was thinking, oh man, right?
That's,
because, I'm still pretty locked up, right? I can't really reach as high as
yeah.
but it's no big deal, right? A couple kicks, boom, boom, I'm out of it, and I just, at that moment, man, I just had time to reflect, right? I kind of like, uh, put my harness, my straps down a little bit. I sat in my harness. And let me tell you, that was the greatest feeling in the world, right? Because
Oh,
like,
yeah. The
I
silence,
don't even, I
peace.
can't explain it.
Yeah, it's very hard to describe, even sort of under normal circumstances. This is what it feels like to be alone under a parachute, up in the sky with that view and that sort of, infinite space. Here you are having come a long way. I mean, how long was it from that really unpleasant wingsuit jump into this point getting back in the air?
5 months and 12 days.
5 months.
Mm, yeah. So it
That's
was,
that's mind-boggling.
yeah, I was determined though. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, you're determined.
I was determined. Because it meant so much more than jumping. Like, like I knew I was gonna have these disabilities, these injuries or whatever you want to call them for the rest of my life. I
Limitations,
knew I
yeah.
had to deal with it. So my thinking was, okay, um, if that's not a big deal, if I can at least
Mm.
work hard and be able to skydive, something I'd love to do, right? And I can do it safely. Um, well, then I can do anything. I don't have to walk around like a victim.
Mhm.
Like,
Yes.
and,
Yeah.
you wake up and you're laying in bed and oh man, everything hurts. You know what? I just want to give up. I don't want to, I'll just lay in bed today. No, hell no. You know what? You can skydive, right? You can stand your landing up, right? Not all the time, but you can get out of bed and go do what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
don't be a victim.
Yeah.
That was my thinking behind that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
caught a lot of heat though. A lot of people were like, "What is wrong with you?" Like how could you even want to skydive after something like that?
How could you not?
And yeah, like that's what I didn't understand. They couldn't understand me, but I couldn't understand them. Like, what you would just give up? You would just quit? You know?
Mhm.
I, why? So you love doing it. That's it. You had an accident. You made a
Yeah.
mistake. It's not the end of the world. I'm not the only guy who didn't slow down enough in his wingsuit, right?
Yeah.
I just happen to get really hurt. That's not the end of the world, man.
Mhm.
You know, yeah, I looked at it as a gift almost. Like why I'm not turning down that gift.
Yes. It really
And
is.
that's how I look at it today. Like everything has changed. Like for me anyway. Like
Mm.
before I got hurt, I'd get to the drop zone and we gear up, we jump, we pull low so we could get down and pack and get on a plane again and jump and pack again.
Mm.
Oh, hey, the winds are pretty crappy. Nah, we're gonna go. We're fine. I can do it. I look at it differently now. I don't want to survive my jumps. I want to enjoy them. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing is like too, like I'm gonna be a leader. I'm not gonna be a follower,
Yeah.
and that's for my own safety, right?
Mhm.
So if I don't like the wins, I don't. There's no peer pressure. I don't care what you think of me because I'm getting off the load because I don't like the wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, but everybody else likes them. Well, good. Then everybody else can go have fun and jump. You know what I mean?
Yep. I'll film it.
It's it's okay. I'll wait till later or
Uh,
whatever. And I noticed a couple times too that when I pulled myself off the load, other people will follow and do the same thing. Nobody wants to be the first one. Which
yep. Bravest person. First person to scratch. Yeah.
yeah, so to me, and not only that, but I enjoy every part of my jump now. Everything.
Mhm.
Gearing up, uh, loading, sitting on the plane, waiting to get to altitude. I
Yeah.
take it all in.
Yeah.
And I get to the door and man, like the second my foot breaks contact,
Mhm.
it's the greatest feeling in the world. Your brain is clear, there's
Yeah.
nothing else on your mind.
Yep.
Um, then when I'm on the canopy, it's just so, to me, it's like, it's not that I'm not supposed to be here, but
Hmm.
I appreciate it so much,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
it was taken away from me,
Yes.
and now I have it back, and I don't want to lose it again, right? And I live my life that way too, though. Like, um, you
Yeah.
know, we tend to take so many things for granted, right? That we do every day. That's who cares, right?
Hmm.
Well, have that taken away from you,
Hmm.
and you'll care, And
Yep.
I'm talking about little things like brushing your teeth,
Yep.
taking a shower, right?
Yeah.
Making a cup of coffee, like,
Yep. Nothing's mundane when you
no,
think, even for an extended moment, that you're never going to have it again.
yeah,
Everything is like a magical gift, isn't it? Yeah.
it really is. I remember being in a hospital and you know, I was starting to become institutionalized, right? Where I started to forget the things I used to really love.
Hmm.
And so his nurse comes in and she says, like, hey, do you want a cup of coffee? And I was like, coffee?
What's
Wow. I haven't had a cup of coffee in like 5 weeks. I was like, yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I had to drink it through a straw, but I really didn't care. I felt normal for a minute. It
Yeah.
was amazing. And that's kind of when I realized like how important like everything is.
Yep.
And especially like how we treat people too. Like, that's so important. Like I can't control how you think or how you act, right?
Right.
So, but that doesn't mean the way you act or what you say to change the way I act, right?
Hmm.
So if I'm gonna have a good day today and I'm gonna be treat everybody good, and I say, "Hi, Brian, how you doing?" And you say, "Yeah, go screw yourself." I don't need to get mad,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, you're having a bad day, right? That's really, it's not my, I don't want to say it's not my responsibility, but I can't control that. All I can do is try
Yeah.
to be, the best person I can be. And if I can affect you by being that way and make you happy, great. But if you're gonna, you have to make that choice yourself, right? Just like I chose to be good in a good mood, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I look at life now.
Yeah.
Because how often do we get a second chance, right? You know, it,
I mean,
and I'm talking like I think I got a third chance.
yeah. Well, exactly. This isn't the first time that the Reaper came for you.
Yeah, I mean,
And you
when I was
keep saying,
working,
and you keep saying, it's not my time.
it's not my
It's
time,
not
right?
my freaking time. And
Not
it's
my
my
freaking time.
choice, right? That's what
Uh,
I'm getting.
right,
It's my choice whether it's not my time. It's my choice if I get up out of this wheelchair.
right,
It's my choice if I get up out of this bed in the morning, and it's my choice to look at my world with a state of appreciation and
right. And
feeling
that's a great
glad.
word. Yeah, that is a great word. Appreciation. Like
Yeah.
I I noticed in the hospital, some of the people in therapy just gave up. They gave up,
Yeah.
and there was nothing that the therapist or anybody could do,
Yeah.
right? Um, because they in their mind they were done. It was over.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and guess what? They didn't improve anymore. That was it. They were stuck,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was kind of frustrating. So because I wanted to shake them, like, oh, come on, just you can do it.
Yeah.
And I learned that also when I was a drill instructor in a police academy, right?
Hmm.
Um, I was called like the heavy, right? I was always very consistent, like the nasty guy, right? It was
Right.
my job that I always had to be
Bad,
that, right?
bad cop.
And, yeah, and it's
Good cop,
look,
bad
and it's
cop.
all like an act, you know what I mean? Like, and I hated it. I hated that job, I'm screaming at people like constantly, you know what I mean? Like, but I would, me and I had a partner. We you could see in the recruits the ones that are about to give up, and you're like, They don't have to.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I write in the book, you know, because this helped me too, because I got to a point in therapy, you know. Well, I'll tell that story because that you'll understand it better, right? So I was in therapy, things were going well. I was improving fairly, you know, on schedule, I would think, like if there was a schedule, right? And they brought me back to the room for lunch, right? And I asked them to dial my wife's phone number, right? Because I still couldn't, you know, do anything with my phone, or they had to do it all for me.
Mm.
So, you know, my wife got her phone. We were talking. I could tell there was something wrong, you know, and she said, "No, everything's fine." But you know, I know she's lying to me. I could tell that she's lying, right? There's something wrong, right? So I press her on it, and she breaks down. So I was crying, and she tells me that my dog died, right?
Ah,
And I'm like, ah, man, like, you know, that really got to me, you know, because I felt like such a loser, right? Sitting in that hospital, right? And I'm trapped there, and things are going on in my life that at my house, and I'm not there, you know, and I truly believe that the dog, all the stress, you know,
mhm.
the accident, and it just, you know, just a lot of stress going on everywhere, you know.
Yep.
The dog was 13 years old, great dog, golden retriever, you know. My wife was teaching from home because of COVID. So she was Zooming and she dismissed the class for lunch. And the dog walked in her room and just laid down and died right at her feet, you know?
Wow.
And so she told me, you know, and I had to get off the phone because it just hit me so hard, you know, like, again, I just felt responsible, you know,
Hmm.
whether I was or wasn't, that's how I felt at the time. And so I just remember sitting in my wheelchair, you know, you know, like anchored to it, right? And I just gave up, you know. I said, I'm done. I'm done. You know, and I'm like, I was thinking to myself, I'm gonna tell my wife, just put me in a nursing home and just make believe I'm dead. Just just wheel me in, leave me alone. I'm done. I can't do it anymore, you know?
Yeah.
You know that, but I started to think, and I remembered like when I was a drill instructor, because you know, when you're like that and you're in your mind most of the time. You're in your brain. You can't move. So where do you go to escape? You go inside your head, right?
Mhm.
For me, the memories that would help me were of a time when I was my strongest, right? And in the most control, right? Because
Mhm.
right now I'm really weak and I have no control, you know. So these memories help me, you know,
Sure.
you know, to remember who I am, you know.
Yeah.
So I remember, you know, I'm a drill instructor, and I just remember all the recruits that I mean I was good at what I did, you know, and again, took no pleasure in my job. You know, this was my job. I had to get these recruits to that point where their breaking point, you know,
Mhm.
and they have to learn for themselves that what they think is their breaking point is not even close, you
Mhm.
know. You're not going to die if you do another push-up. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that you have so much more in you, you know. And I think as human beings, we we um we sell ourselves short. You
Yeah.
know, we think we can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. Yes, you can. You know, you're not even close. You know, when
Yeah.
you think you're at rock bottom, you're not even close. You know,
Mhm.
um, so
That's a
thinking
that's a
of
great
that,
way.
and I so my job was to bring the recruits to that point where they they just can't take it no more. And but what they have to do is that fire that I felt when I was up there, you know, that
Yes.
little tiny flame, you know, they had to get mad, right? And it had to grow because you know, when you get mad and that little fire, like I don't know what it is. I call
Yep.
it like the fire of your soul, whatever, you
Yep.
know, it has to come from that deep spot inside of you.
Yep.
And
Will.
when that ignites and it starts to grow, well, then you get mad. Not mad where you're going to start cursing at somebody, nothing like that. But
No,
you
I get
just,
it.
you know what? I'm not
Force.
going
Yeah.
out this way. You
Mhm.
know, I'm going to die on my feet. I'm going to die with my sword in my hand. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like,
I do. Yeah.
so, that at that moment, I was like, you know what? No,
Hmm.
I'm going back to therapy, and
Hmm.
I'm going to tell them, train me harder. I
Yep.
want more
Yep.
suffering. I want more pain, because the more pain and suffering I take now, the quicker I can get out of here. And the quicker I get out of here on my feet, not in this chair, and that's how I looked at it. And when
That's
I had the accident and you know, after I gave up and was just going to accept floating off and dying, and then I decided not to, because again, that I got angry, that flame ignited. I
mhm.
just, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to die, but I'm going to die my way. I'm going to die fighting, with my sword in my hand, one way or the other. I'm going out fighting,
Yeah.
and that saved my life, because I ended up crashing so close to the drop zone. I was literally across the street, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um, it
Yep.
saved so much time.
Yep.
So
Yeah. To try to dig a little deeper
right,
and
you
use
know,
that force of willpower, right? The will to move forward, even if it's just an inch in the right direction.
we
You
all
know?
have that,
Yep.
we all have that ability.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
That's why, again, it's so important that we don't know how it ends, so we just have to fight.
You
You
got to
know,
try. Yeah. My experience is that if I give my best possible effort in impossible scenarios, the universe takes up the slack. The angels climb, carry me across the finish line somehow.
yeah,
You just got to put forth that full effort, even though it hurts, and not avoid the
right,
pain and fall into the apathy of not giving a shit anymore.
yeah, yes, that's 100% right. So, like,
Mhm.
um, at therapy, like, I had to work hard, but I also had to believe that because I was working so hard that I was going to walk out of that hospital.
Yeah.
I believed that. That wasn't, you couldn't tell me anything different. There was no question. I wasn't worried about it.
Yeah.
I didn't worry, oh, am I going to walk out? I know,
Yep.
I'm walking out, you know,
I do
and
know.
I told my wife, I can't tell you how many times, no, don't worry about it. I got this. I'm walking out of this hospital. I
Uh-huh.
don't know how, but I know it's going to happen. Right.
Yep.
So
Doctors
I
will tell
think,
you stuff. Doctors will say you can't.
yeah,
So
right. What do they know? Right.
yeah.
Like, that's the thing. And the difference too is, like, the people down in North Carolina were so great. Right.
Mhm.
They were like, yeah, you can skydive. It's up to you. You can do whatever you want. You want to skydive? You can skydive. Work hard enough to be able to skydive.
Yeah.
Believe that you can skydive and you'll be able to skydive. Like, even like the doctor, he's like, yeah, sure, you can skydive. You can't hurt anything I did.
Yeah.
And I laughed though. I said, you don't know me that well, but he's like, seriously, no, you can't hurt it. So yes, you can skydive. If you put the work in, you can go do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, when I came home, all the doctors were the opposite. What are you, crazy? No, you can't skydive. You're not going skydiving. What do you want to end up in a wheelchair?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I was in a wheelchair. I'm out, you
Yeah.
know? Um, but it was a total different atmosphere.
Yeah.
They
Well,
they just weren't they weren't having it.
totally. It's not their choice, right? It's
Yeah,
not
no,
their
it's
life.
not.
I had to tell my doctor when he said, "Nope, you're never gonna jump again." They stuck this inside my leg and they're like,
Wow.
nine screws and all this stuff. And he's like, "Yeah, you're probably never gonna walk properly again." And it was nothing like what you went through, but for me it was because I actually
Sure,
believed
right.
it for a moment. I actually believed it until that fire came off in my soul, and I was like, no, no, I'm going to push forward through this. You don't know me, dude. You don't know who
Yeah.
I am and what I can do. And this is my life and my choice. And I'm going to rise up.
You know,
Yeah.
eh, Dying is easy,
Yeah.
right? Living is hard,
Yeah.
right? But it's worth the fight, obviously, right? So I I just, I do think we sell ourselves short.
Yeah.
Um, and again, even like when I'm jumping now, I'll get that thought in my head sometimes, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Like,
Yeah.
and I have to beat it down, and I get rid of it very quickly, like, and then I jump and then I realize why I'm doing it, because I love it so much, right? And it's again, it's more than skydiving. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone, you know. Um,
Mm.
Not even myself. I've already proved to myself that I can do it, you know.
Mhm.
It's more of a just reaffirming that, yeah, man, I'm still alive, I still can do this, which means I can do whatever else I want too, I
Yeah.
don't have to live in the box they want me to stay in,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Eh,
Absolutely.
I'm not staying in the box, So
Exactly. Yeah. And you're an inspiring story or an inspiring person. And I really hope that everybody gets your book.
yeah, thanks. It's
Gary Pacelli, man, you're a gift to the world, and
well, thank you.
your story will inspire many, many people who are not where you are yet, right?
Right.
And
And,
to get back up.
and that's a major reason why I actually wrote it, because you know people who are in that situation and they don't want to give up, but they don't see any other way, right? Because it's the the task at hand is so enormous, right?
Yeah.
It's such an enormous task. Like I remember thinking about, how am I going to walk out of here? I mean, I can't move. Like, what am I going to do? They're feeding me, they're cleaning me. Like, it's so big, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just one little victory at a time. That's all it takes, just whatever it is, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I really, really appreciate you sharing your time with us, sharing your message, and sort of bringing a little bit more light into a world that really could use it.
well, thank you for having me. I really
Yeah,
appreciate you
thanks,
letting me tell my
Gary. Yeah,
story.
that was
Um,
great. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing more and making a jump with you soon.
that'd be awesome. That'd be great.